Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English Daily Book Summary YouTube channel. In order to not stop learning, listen to an English book summary every day for free.
John A. Powell. The Power of Bridging. How to Build a World Where We All Belong. Othering, breaking, belonging, bridging. These four key concepts will change the way you view society and inform your approach to building community. We often think our biggest social problems are separate issues, but they actually share deep connections. People engage in othering when they treat groups as less worthy or less human. This othering leads to breaking, where we actively ignore or oversimplify the full stories and humanity of those we've labelled as different. The solution starts with belonging, giving everyone a real voice and place in society. But here's the catch. Sometimes belonging to one group can make us shut others out. That's why bridging is so important. When we choose to bridge, we actively reach across those divides and connect with people we've labelled as other. In this blink, you'll learn more about how these concepts work together and gain practical tools to build real connections and create positive change. Begin by understanding othering. What drives social division? Let's start by looking at othering, a concept that reveals the hidden patterns behind prejudice. The scholar Edward Said first articulated this when studying how Western writers described Eastern cultures, full of exotic people who weren't quite as civilized as Europeans. Simone de Beauvoir uncovered something similar in gender relations, showing how men throughout history treated women as fundamentally different beings who supposedly couldn't think or lead as well as men. Racism shows us othering at its most devastating. Every day it causes real harm to real people. But racism isn't alone. Homophobia, Islamophobia, ableism, and many more forms of prejudice all work through similar mechanisms. In each case, one group declares, "You're not like us," and uses that supposed difference to justify treating others as less worthy. Something surprising emerges when we dig deeper. Othering isn't simply baked into human nature. Yes, we naturally tend to favour people who seem similar to us, but the stories we tell about who belongs and who doesn't are entirely made up. Look at how people sometimes believe stories that actually work against their own interests. Working-class voters might support policies that mainly benefit the wealthy, or women might defend sexist traditions. This shows us these dividing lines aren't fixed. We can redraw them. The push to belong drives a lot of othering, which might seem counterintuitive at first. A teenager bullies a classmate to fit in with the popular crowd. A struggling community blames immigrants for their problems to feel more united. Religious groups might exclude others to strengthen their own sense of identity. But this kind of belonging through exclusion creates a false unity that ultimately makes genuine connection impossible. Othering isn't only about individual prejudice. The Black Lives Matter movement powerfully illustrates how it operates at every level of society. Entire systems have treated black lives as less valuable, including police departments, courts, and other institutions. And in doing so, they've made it seem normal and acceptable to treat black people differently. Ultimately, individual bias feeds into unfair systems, and those systems then reinforce and justify the bias. We see what we believe. Think you see the world exactly as it is? Think again. Our beliefs shape what we see more than we realise. Take sports fans. We'll swear the referee is biased when they call a foul on our team, but we'll nod along when they penalise the opposition. This isn't just about sports, though. It runs much deeper. Stanford researcher Jennifer Eberhardt discovered something fascinating. People who saw images of black faces before looking at a blurry picture could identify that blur as a gun faster than those who saw white faces or no faces first. Our brains are literally primed to perceive threat where we expect to find it. We see this play out in real life when security guards follow black shoppers around stores, or when people cross the street to avoid young black men. Scientists call this confirmation bias. We see what we already believe. Here's the thing, though. Whether we're talking football teams or race, there's no such thing as a natural other. We create these divisions, and we maintain them through a process called breaking. Two researchers, Susan Fiske and Amy Cuddy, studied how we sort people into categories, and their work helps us understand exactly how breaking happens. They found we judge groups along two main lines: how competent we think they are and how warm we think they are. Groups that don't score high on both scales get pushed aside or broken off from full participation in society. Breaking isn't just about negative feelings, it's about actively pushing people out through specific practices. Consider how Asian Americans often get labelled as competent but cold, leading to the bamboo ceiling where they're given technical roles but kept out of leadership. Meanwhile, people with disabilities might be viewed as warm but not competent, resulting in patronising treatment and exclusion from meaningful work. These stereotypes then get built into systems. A company might create culture fit requirements that just happen to exclude certain groups. Schools might set up gifted programs using criteria that systematically leave out minority students. Housing policies might use seemingly neutral language about neighbourhood character to keep certain groups out. Each of these is breaking in action, taking those warmth/competence judgments and turning them into real barriers that keep people apart. Soft breaking and hard breaking. Let's explore the two ways breaking works to keep groups apart: through seemingly friendly exclusion and through outright rejection. Soft breaking might look kind on the surface. Think about an elderly parent who's loved and cared for but never trusted to make their own decisions. Mom shouldn't worry her head about finances, the family might say, or Dad gets confused easily, better if we handle things. Look back through history at how women were often praised as angels of the home, while being denied the right to vote or control their own money. The love and care were real, but equality? Not at all. Another form of soft breaking happens when people get included, but only if they follow the dominant group's rules. Remember the military's "don't ask, don't tell" policy? Gay and lesbian soldiers could serve their country, but only if they kept their identity completely hidden. It's inclusion with strings attached. Hard breaking shows itself more openly and brutally. It's about total rejection. No relationship, no care, just fear and hatred. Think of the physical barriers from America's past and present: segregated schools, pools and neighbourhoods under Jim Crow laws. Or consider the language politicians use to describe immigrants as floods or invasions threatening to overwhelm us. We saw this ugliness in Charlottesville when white supremacist groups marched through streets chanting about being replaced by other racial groups. Both types of breaking, whether subtle or obvious, prevent people from truly belonging. Even when soft breaking feels almost like welcoming and inclusion, it still keeps people in their proper place. And that's exactly what breaking is designed to do: maintain boundaries between us and them, whether through a smile or a shove. Aspire to belonging without othering. A lot of what passes for belonging in our society is actually just groups huddling together by pushing others out. But real belonging means something different. It's about having the power to help shape the world you live in. And not just for yourself or your group, but for everyone. Think about how we treat immigrants in most countries today. We talk about including them, which usually means they're allowed in if they follow all our rules, speak our language perfectly, and basically become just like us. But that's not true belonging. Real belonging would mean immigrants get to help create new rules and structures that work for everyone, not just adapt to the old ones. This kind of change makes some people nervous. Look at what happened during school desegregation in the US. Segregationists didn't just worry about black and white kids sharing classrooms. They feared desegregation would lead to more interracial marriages, fundamentally changing society. And guess what? They were right about the change part. That's exactly what happened, and it helped create a better society. This is where bridging entrepreneurs come in. These are people who help others see that change doesn't have to mean chaos. They find ways to talk about transformations that calm the fears of powerful groups while still being clear. We need a world where everyone truly belongs, not just some people. Building this kind of belonging means accepting 3 big ideas. First, everyone gets to help create what belonging looks like, not just the currently powerful groups. Second, no single group will end up on top, and no group will end up on the bottom. And finally, we have to be honest that bringing everyone into the conversation will change things dramatically. That's not a bug in the system, it's the whole point. True belonging isn't about fitting into someone else's world, it's about all of us creating a new world together. Bridging creates belonging. Now let's explore bridging and how it works together with belonging to build real connections. Think of belonging as the destination and bridging as how we get there. Bridging starts with something simple but powerful, sharing our stories in a way that leaves room for others' stories too. When we're stuck in breaking mode, we see others as having just one story, usually one that threatens our own. But when we bridge, we can share our own struggles while still acknowledging that others face challenges too. Take a black parent fighting for better schools. A breaking story might focus solely on racial injustice. A bridging story could recognise how poor white families also struggle with underfunded schools while still being clear about the unique barriers black students face. This opens up possibilities for working together instead of against each other. Some people ask whether marginalised groups should have to do the work of bridging. Shouldn't powerful groups make the first move? But here's the thing. Marginalised groups actually benefit from bridging for 2 key reasons. First, experiencing breaking can make us more likely to break others, and bridging helps stop that cycle. Second, when marginalised groups focus on breaking, they often end up splitting apart. Look at how many activist movements have fractured because different subgroups couldn't bridge their differences. Understanding complexity is crucial for bridging. As legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw showed with her concept of intersectionality, we all carry multiple identities. A gay veteran might find common ground with straight service members through shared military experience. A working-class white woman might connect with middle-class women of colour through shared experiences of workplace discrimination, while also acknowledging their different challenges. This means moving beyond simple divisions like conservative versus liberal. A rural hunter might be labelled conservative but care deeply about environmental protection. An urban liberal might support gun ownership for self-defence. When we drop these oversimplified labels, we find unexpected connections. Different types of bridges. Are you feeling inspired to become a bridge builder? Then let's run through some different approaches to building bridges between people and groups, starting with the most manageable connections. Short bridges connect us with people who share part of our world but have grown divided over different values. While existing common ground might make these seem easier to build, shared history often makes the work more complex. So start by focusing on what you still share. Meet for coffee, work on practical projects together, and listen with genuine curiosity. Long bridges span the widest divides, connecting us with people whose views seem to threaten our core values. This often works best when leaders show the way first. When Martin Luther King Jr. engaged with white religious leaders who opposed him, he created openings for their communities to follow. To build long bridges, start by challenging your assumptions about those most different from you. Find natural meeting points and focus on understanding rather than winning arguments. Transactional bridging turns its attention to specific results, like when civil rights activists worked with business owners to end segregation. While the owners might not have had a change of heart, their response still helped create change. Transformational bridging imagines entirely new possibilities. The disability rights movement didn't just seek better access to buildings. It transformed how society thinks about disability, creating spaces that work for everyone. Spiritual bridging connects us with another's whole humanity while expanding our own. Think of a straight parent moving beyond accepting their gay child to become an LGBTQ+ ally, transforming both their relationship and their understanding of love. The key is to start where you are. Begin with the connections you can make today, then gradually expand your reach as you build confidence and skill. In this Blink to the Power of Bridging by John A. Powell, you've learned that society divides through othering and breaking, where groups are seen as less worthy and kept apart through both subtle and obvious means. Real belonging means everyone gets to help create the world, not just fit into existing structures. Bridging helps us get there by sharing stories and building connections, starting with people close to us before reaching across bigger divides. Okay, that's it for this Blink. We hope you enjoyed it. If you can, please take the time to leave us a rating. We always appreciate your feedback. See you soon.